We're very excited because we've got a whole panel here, and let's get straight into it with none other than, well, the carryover champs on a Monday night, none other than Janine Perrott, dressed in appropriately Clive Palmer yellow. How are you?
Oh, I've made an error. I was thinking gold for Australia Day, bit of green. This is not Clive Palmer yellow. I think he's the most odious man that ever infected public life in this country, so I am not supporting him.
Well, and the other carryover champ on a Monday night, none other than Graham Richardson. How was Townsville, mate?
Hot. No, it was terrific. We had a great break, nearly 5 weeks.
Good stuff.
I enjoyed myself. I ate at the Watermark regularly.
Oh, g'day, Danny. We love you, brother.
So those prawn cutlets, I can still taste them.
When they know you're coming, do they double up the order? Do they know Richo's coming back up the truck?
Yeah, they actually do serve quite a bit.
Yeah, as well they should.
I enjoyed myself, trust me.
And the man who we're looking forward to joining us on a Monday night each and every week from here on in, Rowan Dean from The Outsiders. How are you?
Very good. Honoured to be on the Monday slot with Richo, my old sparring partner from a few encounters with Ben Fordham, which we enjoyed. Now, Richo, was it you telling all those pollsters, oh, yeah, I'll vote for Palmer, I'll vote for Palmer up in Townsville? You must have had a ball. Yeah, a great Christmas. A lot of fun.
He wasn't me. Now, you notice he's sitting on my left.
Oh, yes, well...
Yeah, that's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, television right, though, I think... Anyway, it gets complicated if we try to work these things out. And the delightful Pauline Hanson, the leader of One Nation, Queensland Senator, joining us now, of course. From which part of Queensland do we get to say g'day to you, mate?
The Scenic Rim, Queensland, Paul.
Oh.
Yes, hi everyone, hello.
G'day.
Yeah, good to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
I had a little dip into the Scenic Rim, actually, just around Bow Desert at my mate Larko's farm. I tell you what, I want some acreage and I want some Polarises to ride around on it. That's the way my life's going to be. All right. Now, guys, let's get into all the big stuff, but the question that I think a lot of people casually observing politics, or may have even asked all of you guys over summer, is about, well, Clive Palmer, and with all of that advertising, can you buy your way back into the good graces of Australians? Now, based on the evidence in this poll that came out, at 8%, the United Australia Party is not about to win the seat of Herbert, but you would think in the very place where he is still... The ructions of his behaviour still exists, the fact that he can get 8%, well, what does that mean for places where compulsory voting, you couldn't care a stuff about both sides, and see what happens here. And then we'll get to the overall question of Herbert, but let's start with the appropriately yellowed Janine. We're going to keep doing this all night. Are you surprised that he has been able to, by sheer force of advertising, messaging, it is repetitive, and it's not just, you know, where he buys an ad spend here, he's doing it in the tennis, it's everywhere, that he can get to even 8%. Remember, the first poll last year was just 1%, so there's some growth.
I think it's the most depressing thing I've heard. And it does make me wonder. I mean, we read the papers, we watch it. You've missed a couple of things about Clive. Not only did he diddle all those hundreds of workers in Townsville who still owed their money, but over Christmas, this is a man, it was revealed, is moving his company, what's left of the remnants that aren't being challenged in the court, he's moving it to New Zealand. He's also threatening to sue the West Australian government or the taxpayers for $45 billion. I mean, it just gets worse and worse. Now, if people have missed these little gems about Mr. Make Australia Great Again while moving to New Zealand to avoid a few things, perhaps you often say the union movement. This is where I would support them spending their money. Let's just try and remind people, as I said, what a really, really shocking character he is.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, Richo, I'd imagine there's a calculation here in the union movement that he's not going to take any votes off us, so let him run. But you were there in Townsville. This is the place that still feels the consequences of his behaviour. But when I was there for the V8s a few months ago, no posters from the unions pushing back.
No, he has splashed so much cash up there. It is staggering. It's not just the advertising. You know, the little sporting clubs and things. They're just getting check after check after check. And so, yeah, he's buying votes. And I think he's pretty much at the limit of what he's going to get. But, gee, he spent a lot of money getting it. And the advertising, you can't get away from him. It's appalling. Because I've got to say, of all the people in politics, like Janine, the one person that rubs me totally the wrong way is him. I cannot handle any part of him. He's just a grub. And I wish he'd go away, but he stays.
Well, but it's this thing where, Pauline, obviously, he'd be rubbing his hands together saying, great, all these people who said I had no chance last time are now all lining up against me again. Great, I want to be the anti-hero here. Obviously, you're running against him. One Nation has nowhere near the cash that he's going to have to be able to splash against you. Are you concerned at all that he, in part, eats your vote?
Paul, you will always have those people that are actually going to sell their vote because it all sounds good to them. People don't take an interest in politics, and whoever sounds the greatest salesman, that's what it is, a car salesman, who, come on down, buy this, they will actually cast their vote there without really looking at the ramifications of what this person will do on the floor of Parliament for the future generations of this country. And, you know, you're talking about buying votes. Liberal and Labor have been buying votes, pork barrelling for years in elections. In the last election, both the Liberal and Labor Party spent about $60 million in buying votes. I'd like to cap votes in every electorate at $50,000. Give those people who want to run as independents and will be good on the floor of Parliament. Why are we actually going down the track of what the more money is spent, you're buying votes from the people, and we're losing good people to actually stand on the floor of Parliament? You know, I've got my views about this, by all means.
Now, let's talk about the actual seat of Herbert, because, as I said, it was one that was won by less than 50
37 votes.
37 votes, the most marginal seat in the country. Now, I'm interested in this because, yes, it shows that the Labor Party is starting to build on that slender lead. But what I'm fascinated by here, Rowan, is the national polls, and we'll get a news poll at some point in this hour that'll be the front page of tomorrow's newspaper in The Australian. They show massive gaps. At one point it was 10 points, at some points it'll be 8 or 6, but the narrative being that the Liberal Party vote is absolutely collapsing, and that's it. However, in the seat of Herbert, what is fascinating to see is overall two-party preferred is 51-49. Now, I'm just interested that if the march is on against the government, why wouldn't it be on in a place that's already got a Labor member?
Yeah, well, it's fascinating. If you look at those figures, particularly the 32% for both Liberal and Labor, and then you add in, went through the exercise of adding Pauline's party and Bob Katter's party to the Liberal vote and adding the Greens to Labor, and the supposedly conservative side of politics absolutely slams the left in that electorate. And I'm sure that's why Graham lives up there much of the year, because he feels much safer out of a Labor stronghold, although it is a seat, as you say. If the conservative message or voice up there resonates very strongly, Clive Palmer, as you were saying, running his ad campaign, you know, 50 million or whatever he's spending. There's a famous line where Lord Halifax or someone said, "Why do you spend so much money on advertising?" And he said, "Well, does any of it work?" And he said, "Well, I know 50% of it works, but I don't know which 50%. So at least $25 million of Clive Palmer's money is actually hitting the mark, and there are people sitting there going, "Oh, make Australia great again. Oh, yeah, OK. Oh, good. Yeah, I want to do that. That's my bloke." And they don't think further than that, and that's the problem.
For those that may be novices to this stuff, Richo, if the march is on against the government, why in a place like Herbert would it be 51-49, not closer to that national average that is apparently the big blowout here? And does that tell you anything about the true state of how tight this could be?
No, Far North Queensland is simply a different place altogether. You know, if you look at the electorate of Leichhardt as an example, based on Cairns and up, that's very rarely a Labor seat. I mean, during the Hawke years, John Gaylor held it a couple of times, but it's for Labor, but it's always a Liberal seat. Yet if you look at who holds the state seats, Labor does it comfortably. In Townsville, Labor holds all the state seats. But once you get outside of Townsville in the electorate of Herbert, there aren't too many Labor votes out there, very few. And so, you know, Townsville tends to be a bit of a bellwether federally, and at the moment, it's not the best for Labor. It's certainly nowhere near what I'd like it to be.
But the best story for you, Pauline, is, of course, that Senate hope for Malcolm Roberts as your candidate and Steve Dixon as number 2, is that you got a state MP up in that part of the world, and in this specific electorate, it's 9%. You need 14% to get somebody over the line, but it doesn't show any fall apart for you guys recently.
No, look, I feel very comfortable in the way that we're travelling and the support that we are getting in North Queensland. Now, especially in the seat of Herbert, Townsville, I managed to get that $5 million for the driver training centre, which they fought for 13 years. Never even got a hearing from Cathy O'Toole or any of the others. And I actually got the water pipeline, and Scott Morrison actually, you know, put $195 million into the water pipeline just after he became Prime Minister. So that's another thing that I've achieved for them.
Oh, come on. That's ridiculous.
You know, it's about working. It's about working for the electorate up there. They've been completely forgotten, and it It was lobbying not only Scott Morrison, it was also the former Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, over this pipeline, plus also Matisse Cormann and others that I lobbied about it. To bring common sense, they had to have the water pipeline.
What's wrong with what you just said, Richard?
It's as if she's all done this by herself, which is absurd. Jenny Hill, who's the mayor of Townsville, has done nothing else but campaign on that bloody pipeline for the last 5 years.
Jenny Hill was not pushing it because I'll tell you what, Jenny Hill is Labor, and Jenny Hill was wanting to actually hand that to the Labor government to shore it up to get it.
You just think if you say it often enough, people will believe it. That's just rubbish.
They were playing politics, Graham. You should know. You've played politics enough of your life. And you know what I do? I don't play politics. I go out there and work for the people and fight for it.
You are right now. Right now. What you have done is just dismiss all the work of Jenny Hill, claim all the credit for yourself. You're not that good.
No. Happy New Year. Welcome back, everyone. Let's talk about everyone's comfortable, good. We've got the cobwebs off. We're back. This is the way it should be. Now, guys, what I mentioned here is about, you know, the media and how often they mention the name Zali Steggall in many ways is what legitimises the challenge against Tony Abbott. But the truth is that with people who used to work on the Kerryn Phelps campaign and Kerryn Phelps herself, writing as she did in the Channel 9 Press today, basically is giving it the full tick of approval, and basically there seems to be an attempt to run the exact same campaign in Wentworth with somewhat of a Wentworth twist. I'm not, a Warringah twist. I'm not aware of what that is right now, but here's what Kerryn Phelps said, that Zali and I have much in common, small L Liberal and level-headed. Zali has the added advantage of the support of a number of high-profile community groups, including Voices for Warringah and Time's Up Tony. These were always antis anyway here. Rowan, look, I think that Tony Abbott can't be anything but worried when there is the confluence of forces that will fight against him, the Melbourne Cup field, and a media that will legitimise a contender from day one. But I think you can't just do what they did in Wentworth.
Yeah. Look, first of all, Paul, I'm very disappointed because when I was in advertising, you know, I was hoping that they'd give me a shot at this campaign, because when I was in advertising, I did heaps of Steggall's ads, and they were really good. They were really good. So, anyway, brand recognition, I thought I would be front of the pack. But anyway, she's, you know, she's pretending to do, as you said, brilliant editorial. As you said, she's trying to copy the whole Kerryn Phelps thing. Kerryn Phelps was well regarded and at one point was being talked about as a Liberal candidate.
She was a local councillor,
she has all those
boss of the AMA.
So there's this new idea. I mean, it's laughable, beyond laughable, to call Zali Steggall's the sensible centre, as she calls herself. I'm the sensible centre, and I accept that, and so I'm in a good position to recognise who's to the right and who's to the left. And let me tell you categorically, Zali Steggall's cannot call herself the sensible centre. No one who pretends that they have sensible economic policies but at the same time believes in the climate change hoax can call themselves a sensible centrist. The reality is that she is a hard left, hard green candidate. It's all refugees, it's all this stuff. Yes, she's right to criticise the Labor Party's negative gearing and those policies, because half of Warringah and the northern beaches rely on negative gearing, so she's smart enough to recognise that. But she is, you know, this is why it's so important, or would be so important, if Scott Morrison had the guts to pull out of Paris and fight this election on climate change and say, no, people like Zali Steggall's are complete frauds. There is no silver bullet that the member for Warringah can do to save the planet from global warming. It's a lie, it's a con, and if people swallow that lie, good luck to them. But the reality is, if Scott Morrison wants to win the election, he should fight this hoax, this nonsense, as Pauline Hanson is brave enough and intelligent enough to do, and as are the Australian Conservatives.
Well, I'd love to see him do it, because he gets smashed. Absolutely smashed.
No, he wouldn't, actually.
So I'd love him to try. But actually, he won't.
Next time you're up in Townsville, talk to those people outside on the beach there. They will tell you, no.
No one goes to the beach in Townsville, mate.
There's crocodiles.
But do you mean,
yeah, climate change causes crocodiles, no doubt.
The beach is empty.
Yeah. But can we get a little pointy-headed about how politics is played and behind the scenes of things? You offered a small amount of scepticism about the awesomeness of this candidate on Sunday morning, and they all seemed to guffaw, the political experts. They thought, oh, well, this will all just be the same, won't it?
Well, I just flippantly said that it's not like a Summer Olympics gold medal. I think we need to put that in perspective. You know, I'm not sure they're household names, the bronze medalist in the Winter Olympics. But being serious, I did say she might be a barrister. I thought she could present better. But she's not Karen Phelps, and it's not Wentworth for a key reason. Malcolm Turnbull wasn't running. I mean, this was a protest. He was the local member. He was popular. He wasn't running, so the field was open. Dave Sharma was a new candidate.
From the North
She is
Shore.
running against somebody who's there. It is much harder. And it's all very nice that they're going to share things and try and make her into the next Karen Phelps. But for all the reasons you say, Karen Phelps was a much more formidable, and she was a political operator.
Yeah.
This woman is a novice.
This woman's got not much of a clue about politics at all. And so it's nothing like Karen Phelps, nothing like it. And I'd still be putting my money on Abbott to win.
All right. Going to take a quick break. Pauline, don't worry, you get the first say off the next one. Plenty more to fire up about here on Paul Murray Live, including the United Nations apparently thinks turnbacks don't work. Except we know they do. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, Series Link this hour and the next. Make sure that you, on your EPG, press the green button, go forward an hour as well for Paul Murray later, where we go to the pub and we're going to talk sport tonight. And I don't think it's raining, so hopefully you'll be able to hear what we actually do in the second hour of the program. But looking forward to all of that. Till then, so much to continue talking about with Pauline Hanson, with Janine Perrott, with Graham Bridgetson and with Rowan Dean. Let's talk about your mates, the Greens, Rowan, because how's this? They would like the lower house to pass a piece of legislation effectively banning all forms of coal. It's digging it up, sending it anywhere else. Here's what Adam Bant has had to say of recent days about the thing that keeps the freaking lights on, which is, as Australia swelters and burns, we shouldn't be using public money to make global warming worse. If the government won't voluntarily rule out giving public money to fossil fuels, then Parliament must stop them. This, of course, got many on the left excited today of a potential embarrassing vote on the floor of Parliament. Only problem is, Labor would have to vote with them. And as much as we can say whatever we want about Bill Shorten, he ain't going to, in the lead up to an election, back the Greens in a vote in Parliament to ban coal.
No, but he might after he wins the election, and that's why people should be terrified of Labor. And the reality is these people should be done for treason, seriously. They are in a position of responsibility of care to the people of Australia. We rely on energy from the Mrs. Kafoops in her retirement home, who relies on the air conditioning or the heating during winter, to every small business, tradie person who relies on cheap electricity to be able to compete. Australian jobs competing with jobs from China and around the world. Australia needs and relies on its energy, and these, in my opinion, criminals within the Greens and parts of Labor who wish to destroy our industrial basis, destroy the foundations of our economy, are so irresponsible, so grotesquely irresponsible. The reckoning will come, and it will come within a few years, when people realise, A, that the climate change thing was a hoax. There is no proven link between carbon dioxide and any warming of the planet, and we also know that the planet has not warmed out of any normal calculations of historic patterns. So these people are destroying the Australian way of life, jobs, health, prosperity of our kids. They are utterly irresponsible, and they cannot be condemned other than in the harshest possible terms, in my opinion. And
again, Pauline, for any of this to become a law before the election, it'd have to pass both houses. Are there enough crazy people in the Senate to actually agree to this stupid idea?
No, it won't happen. It won't happen. I completely agree with Rowan, but another thing to this, it's not about electricity because that's the thermal coal. What we sell a lot of is coking coal. Coking coal actually is used with to make steel. The strongest steel in the world actually comes from our coking coal, which is the best in the world. And we sell a lot of that to China, which makes the steel. And it's the best steel in the world, as I said. Now, to make a windmill, which they want to put up on our hills and all over the place, it takes 220 tonnes of our coking coal to build a windmill. So what are they going to do there? The whole fact is we will not have strong buildings of the steel that, with the steel that we make here in this country and elsewhere. And also the coal that we sell, it's a resource that we're looking at 90 billion or 100 billion a year that brings revenue into the country, the jobs that it creates. What are we going to do there? What Rowan said about climate change, it's all BS what they're peddling here. And I tell you what, jobs will be gone. We will end up a third world country if we back and support the Greens on this. And Labor will do whatever the Greens want to get into government. So I'm telling you, you vote for the Greens, it's a vote for Labor, and you're going to end up with this mad extremist government in this country, and heaven help us.
I just wanted to make a little point, though. There was an interesting story this week. Germany, one of the most industrialised Western nations, has announced this week that it is going to get rid of all coal power plants by 2038. That's 84 of them.
Do they have any
we've got
nuke?
15. They have some, but they've been phasing that out. They have some, but I mean, obviously they're going up on the renewals and they're going. Look, I'm not defending it. I'm just saying. I thought they were phasing it out, but they've still got. They have still. Oh no, not them. Yes, but they use nuclear power.
Use it, but they don't have any.
But the point is, it's a heavily industrialised nation. They're going to. They've come up with this idea to get rid of all coal power plants by 2038. So obviously,
I'm surprised to hear that, Janine, because my understanding is a lot of the countries around the world are actually putting in new coal-fired power plants and actually building them.
They've got nuclear.
Yep. Well, Germany was on the list to actually build them, so I'm surprised at what you're actually saying.
Well, no, it was announced this week, 2 days ago.
You'd heard two people say it. The question is, for any of this to happen before an election, Labor would have to back it. They're not going to do that. But what happens with this dance when you need Greens preferences to get some people elected? You may need the Greens bloc to get anything done in the Senate. How are you going to hold back when this is the price of power?
Always remember that you also have to hold your base. You're not just trying to win over new people, you've got to hold your base. And I think the chances of this happening between now and April...
Sorry, Richard. Labor's base, you deserted your base years ago.
Rubbish.
Your base is the hard-working, blue-collar people that made this country. Your mob deserted them, left them, kicked them in the balls, closing down power stations, throwing them on the scrap heap. I remember your mate Paul Howe saying, if one job is lost, I will resign. Thousands of jobs have been lost. You mob lie through your teeth. You promised us, Paul Howe said, if one single job goes under the carbon tax, I will resign. Thousands of jobs have gone thanks to climate change madness. That's what Labor are like. That's what Labor died. You have ditched the working class people of this country. You threw them on the scrap heap, and you have the chutzpah to say that they're your base. Your base is the clowns in places like Marrickville, the doctors' wives, their compassionate virtue signaling. That's your base. Your base now. Greens and lefty Liberals. Malcolm Turnbull wanted to join your party. You said it yourself. They're the people you look after now. You kicked the working class
wanted to, and who stopped
long ago.
Who stopped
long ago.
Forever deserves
And that's why they've all gone to One Nation or Australian Conservatives, because they saw you betray them.
You
betrayed Labor. You betrayed the working class.
One Nation's vote stayed the same for a bloody decade.
You betrayed the working classes of Australia, and you know it.
Pauline, you get the last say about Labor and the Greens, and then off to a break.
Well, I'm sick of Two-Faced Bill. He's down south telling people in Victoria, no, we're against Adani. He goes up in Queensland on his bus tour and he says, we're for jobs, and he won't come out against Adani mine. He's Two-Faced Bill, and if you want to put him in as Prime Minister, you know, Two-Faced Bill and the Labor Party. I tell you what, I was in Tamworth on the weekend. I spoke to people. They said we were staunch Labor voters. You know what? We've had enough. We're not voting Labor again. So there's going to get a hell of a shock at the next election because they're fed up with Labor as well. Gotcha. You haven't looked after the hard-working people in this country.
And you must tradies know it too. The tradies know it too.
Townsville to find Labor voters.
You struggle to find a tradie now who supports your mob. They know. You go to the Central Coast, you go south of Sydney, you will not find tradies supporting Labor any longer. They've walked away.
And you also find there's still Labor electorate after the election.
Betrayed them.
Now,
you betrayed them.
Fascinating that you mentioned the Central Coast. Which seats are the Liberal going to win?
I said tradies, OK? You speak to tradies. You go up, you speak to tradies. They come out and they say, I don't get it. This Paris Agreement...
Well, if they're all voting against Labor, how come Labor wins the seats?
Why can't I buy concrete from Boral any longer?
You can't answer that.
We can only
just keep talking.
Why does the concrete
flap your gums because you can't answer the main, the core question.
You got
flap away.
You
got
You betrayed Labor. You betrayed the working classes, and you know it.
And this is why You love this show. More in a sec here on Paul Murray Live. In a second, we'll talk a bit of Trump and is Hillary going to run again? Please, please, yes. Thank you very much for watching. In about 15 minutes, we're going to head down the pub. Well, not all of us, and you're all welcome, of course. But we're going to be there at the Governor. Looking forward to kicking back and talking about sport with Dan Ganane, Tim Gilbert, and plenty more to fire up about with them. In the meantime, how's this for a panel? I'm loving this Monday night already. Can we have a third hour, please, just to get through all of this and then do sport with Rowan Dean, with Pauline Hanson, with Janine Perry, and with Graham Richardson? You'd be fine with 3 hours, wouldn't you, mate?
Mate, I'm tired already. I seem to be fighting everyone. I'm a man of peace.
Oh, we've stacked the panel against you again, have we?
Always.
Yeah, always.
And despite what Rowan said, I am the sensible centre.
Oh.
Well, just very
You're
briefly,
fighting everyone because you usually run, Richard.
just to cheer you up, Richard, I've just checked because I wanted to, that my sources tell me, Pauline, you'll be delighted to hear this, that polling for One Nation on the Central Coast is 18%. Oh. I was right, Richard.
There you go.
Oh.
All right.
Yes.
Right about what?
18%,
Wow.
Pauline. Polling
all right, everyone can see.
For One Nation. I've got my finger on the pulse, Richard.
Yeah.
Right, everyone can see
If
the
you
bottom of
speak
this.
to any tradie on the Central Coast, they'll tell you.
New South Wales state elections, Mark Latham looks
Absolutely.
like he's got a seat with a couple of others under those figures. But anyway, I don't take it for
working
granted.
class, the blue
We've got
collars.
to prove to the people.
The blue collars and deserted Labour.
We've got
As
to
you
prove
can
to the
see,
people that we
Richard's
have
got
the
a blue collar.
policies and that we can actually work for them.
All right, I'll just do a bit of hosting here, guys.
Labor person who does.
OK, the breaking news at the bottom of the screen that's been up for a couple of minutes here is that there is a new news poll, front page of the Australian newspaper tomorrow. The headline is that things are slightly better for the government, but still well and truly in an election losing position, because I think we all know what this means. 53-47, with a 2-point change in favour of, well, going slightly the government's way, but still Labor in front. Here's where the story is interesting. The primary vote for the Labor Party over summer has gone down, and gone down by 3 points. Well, that being Pauline Hanson and the others in the crossbenchers, is up 1, and up 2 is the Liberal Party vote. The Greens go nowhere, so maybe a couple of people coming back from Labor, but still, obviously, the question there about Bill Shorten heading his way towards being the next Prime Minister. Better Prime Minister, according to a news poll that's just dropped, is 36-43. Richo, why did 3% of the Labor Party vote disappear over summer?
No idea. I don't think anybody else would either. Just the vagary of polling, I'd say. You can't get them all.
They're waking up.
You can't get them all the same.
They had time to think about it.
Anyone who works off one poll is crazy. So let's have a look at the next couple and see what they say.
Well, the truth is that it is always generally going to tighten in the lead up to an election. And the thing about summer is there's not a lot of active politics about. So people who may have been aggro start to float back. We see what happens. Of course, the overall here is Australia looks like it's going to change the government by the margin, however, doesn't seem to be the same as it was at the end of the year, Janine.
I'm just wondering if those 3 ministers who rushed out from the sinking ship last week will be thinking, oh, maybe I should have waited a week or two. What if there's a second poll? Maybe we're a bit hasty. But what's
Kelly O'Dwyer is no loss.
But what's interesting is that it was perceived, the Gilmore issue with Warren Mundine, all the ministers leaving, it was not considered a great week for the government. So that is even more interesting, I think, and it shows that by hitting on negative gearing, the franking credits, by sticking, and Josh Frydenberg has been really, really pushing that argument that might be having some impact, because that's the only thing I can see in their favour.
Well, Pauline, what do you think changed over summer? Still, Labor heading towards a victory, the margin a little bit tighter.
I think Bill doing the bus trip through Queensland hasn't helped him whatsoever. I think people are just seeing him for the person that he really is. And, you know, he doesn't come across well. He's not really got the policies. Bill shut down. What's the Labor policies? He's saying nothing. I'm not denying the fact that Labor are looking at winning government after the next election, but people really have to understand what their policies are and what they're going to stand for, and they're going to get the Greens with them. And, you know, they really need to understand the economics. The country's travelling quite well economically under the coalition government. Look at that factor. I'm not propping up the coalition government. I'm there to support One Nation, get more members elected to Parliament, but I'm looking at the well-being and future of the country, and we've seen under Labor they're not good economic managers. There's going to be a downturn, my opinion, worldwide. You've got the banks tightening up their lending. There's going to be tough times coming. The people have to consider who's the best economic managers when it comes to tough times, and I tell you, it's not Labor. So think seriously about who you're going to vote for at the next election.
All right, before...
I'd say two things to that. Firstly, it's 5 years since wages went up and people are pretty angry about it. Secondly, under the Liberals, debts just soared, absolutely soared. If that's good economic management, then I don't think anybody knows what economic management is.
I'm sorry. When Labor came in, they were at $56 billion. When Labor left, they were at $270 billion. So under Labor, the economy actually went further into debt as well. And Labor now...
What's the figure now? Hang on. What's the figure now? You're very good at past figures. What's the figure now on debt?
Yep. Yes, they have. And the coalition have run up the debt by all means. They have, by all means. But Labor now wants to. Bill Shorten has come out now and said he wants to give another $500 million to the UNHCR, another $500 million to them. We haven't got the money, Graham. So this is what I'm talking about, buying votes, and the people are sick and tired of seeing our money going to overseas countries or to these organisations when we can't afford it. Start building the infrastructure, the water infrastructure that we need in this country, and start looking after the farmers and what we need in this country first and foremost, instead of these bad economic managers and buying and pleasing the bleeding hearts out there.
All right, let's jump to Donald Trump chat, because I think that may take us a little time to get through. There's a couple of things worth mentioning here. There is a lot of people, of course, for the Democrats who think it's a slam dunk in 2020 that they're going to get home. It'll be easy for them. It's 2 Melbourne Cup fields that'll end up running for that position. One of the highest profile people in the United States who is putting their hand up to run for president on the Democratic side is a woman called Kamala Harris. Now, she is a lady who was a former prosecutor. She was a former Attorney General in California. There's a big X next to that I'll get to in a second. She's a senator, and she is someone who a lot of lefties seem to really think is the option here to take down Trump. She had a rally today in California, formally announcing she wants to take Trump on.
I stand before you today to announce my candidacy for President of the United States. We are here knowing we are at an inflection point in the history of our world. We are at an inflection point in the history of our nation. We are here because the American dream and our American democracy are under attack and on the line like never before. I'm running for president because I love my country.
Janine, OK, I understand the use of terms like the, inflection point. 10 million people in America watch a show called Dr. Pimple Popper, so I'm not entirely sure that they are exactly at that point. I'm also so bored of hearing how democracy is under threat. Well, democracy, if you're a lefty, worked because they took back the House the last time around, and democracy is the method by which they would seek to remove Trump from office. So it's not a third world dictatorship, all the rest of it here. Do you like this lady, and is she a shot?
Look, I think it's interesting that you're having the extreme, the really hard left. You've got 3 women, I can't remember if Kristen Gillibrand's actually announced her about to. She has. You've got Elizabeth Warren, who came out early, Kamala Harris.
Pocahontas.
They are all coming out very, very early. Meanwhile, in the background, the old white bloke, Joe Biden's making a lot of noises. I think it's an uphill battle. It's this argument that they think that they're going to get the hard left are going to get there. I think in the end, that is not what's going to win. I think there'll be a lot of them. They're all very accomplished media performers, but I'm not sure it's the answer. It's very popular at the moment, 2 years out, in the midst of the shutdown and what's happened, but I'm not sure that's a winning argument.
Also, there was when she was Attorney General, get ready for this to be one of those attacks where, as you know, as you slowly move up, regardless of what the grey is around these things, the black and white becomes a problem for you. She was the Attorney General in California, and she was basically fighting against the use of the death penalty for a person who killed a cop. So get ready for that and the law and order and the Trump pushback that's going to happen here. Now let's get to Hillary. This was the Clinton News Network with their very excited reporting.
Hillary Clinton is telling people that she's not closing the doors to the idea of running in 2020. Let's just let that sink in. I'm told by 3 people that as recently as this week, she was telling people that, look, given all this news from the indictments, particularly the Roger Stone indictment, she talked to several people saying, look, I'm not closing the doors to this.
Rowan, on a scale of 1 to 300, how wide would your smile be if Hillary even thought about it again?
Fantastic, 350. Look, you know, the Democrats are a joke. The left is a joke. Donald Trump will win the next election. These people are all just clowns running around. They don't stand for anything. That's the point that we see time and time again. Kamala Harris, she did all the symbolic things of standing on the right steps in front of something that was important and saying, doing it on Martin Luther King Day and doing all this sort of stuff. What does she stand for? Get rid of Trump. It's the same as that Zali Steggles lady in Warringah. Get rid of Tony Abbott. They don't stand for anything else. It's purely a reaction to the fact that we have successful conservative leaders like Donald Trump who actually say, here's what I'm going to do. You may not like it. It's bitter medicine to swallow, but I'm going to do it. And then they set out to do it. And Donald Trump, unemployment amongst Hispanics, blacks, women, lowest all-time figures. He's turned the economy around. He's doing a great job. These people don't have a hope in hell.
All right. At that point, we say goodnight to everyone who's watching us right now on Sky News on Win. Get ready for Bill and Boz to give you your nightly sports fix. For everyone else on Foxtel, the debate continues. We'll see you again tomorrow night for more Paul Murray Live. Have fun wherever you happen to be in the bush and send us an email, pmurray@skynews.com.au. Richo, how do you feel about Hillary 17.0?
Oh, Hillary won't run when the crunch comes, I don't think.
No, she's not going to run.
Just
I hope she does, but she's not going to.
She won't run.
But what do you think about, you know, all these kind of identity politics style people who think that, you know, the country is... I mean, in California, I would understand that the raging against Trump is a sport to compete, to be more outraged by him, all the rest of it here. She's a smart woman. She's a smart woman of mixed race, all the rest of it here. Is that the package that would scare Trump?
Look, I guess... it's the only package you can have against him, because the Democrats have gone quite left. I mean, they've embarked on a series of left-hand turns for the last probably 5 years, and I'm not sure that they'd have a credible candidate from the centre. I just don't think there is one. So I think you'll get a...
Joe.
Well, yeah, but Joe's...
You just described as the old white man.
Yeah, well, he is the old white man.
Joe's just too old.
He is.
So I think it's hard to get a credible candidate from the sensible centre, or whoever you want to call it. Therefore, it's most likely you'll get a nutter who'll have Buckleys, and Trump will romp it in.
Because it's that thing, of course, Pauline, where an interesting piece of analysis about the Donald Trump stuff is, look, the investigation rolls on. If that lands where it does, we'll see what happens. The trouble for him, of course, is that he made big promises to people in areas, I will bring jobs back, I will bring your job back, I will bring manufacturing back.
That's not happening.
And to me, that's the ultimate decider about whether he's there or not. Not whether an identity politics person can pretend that democracy is dying in our times. It's people who took a gamble on him, whether they think it's worth doing again.
Look, I think Hillary's past her use-by date. I think she's just thrown that line out there and seen what feedback she gets from the media and other people and the interest that she has there. But I think she's past her use-by date, as the Clintons are. As far as Donald Trump, and I know people have gone over to the United States and they said it's pumping. They said the shopping centres are full. The waitresses, although they've lowered the wage, but their tips, they're getting fantastic money, and they're making around about $40 an hour in tips. So anyway, they're doing quite well, and the economy is pumping. So I think Donald Trump's done a lot, what he said he would do. It's shown in the polls. They said he's on about 42%, that popularity that he has over there. So I think he's travelling quite well. You're going to have the detractors. They will keep going because you've got the left, the Democrats. Of course, they're going to have a go at him. But comes down to the vote, and I think he's travelling quite well.
Richo, over summer, how much interest did you take in the incremental thises and that's of the Mueller inquiry?
No, I've lost a lot of interest in the Mueller inquiry for a long time now, because it seems to me that if you've been going this long and you haven't been able to ping anything on Trump, then it's just becoming an exercise in vain. And I just don't. I don't take. I used to, read every bit of it. I got tired of it now, so I'm less inclined to
The
take it
shutdown was
seriously.
far more fun to
Well, I was
follow
going to say,
over
whereas
Christmas.
Janine has a Google alert on all things.
God, we're
What do you think? How did the sky fall in on Trump in the past few weeks? Do you think anything's
Oh,
changed?
look, there is no way that the shutdown can be seen as a positive. We saw that press conference where he said, I'm going to own this. Well, he did. The great negotiator did back off. I mean, you've got Ann Coulter calling you a wimp, for God's sake. His popularity plummeted. And let's be honest, it's only a 3-week reprieve. So, I mean, who knows what's going to happen in 3 weeks? You can't win. I mean, I think they will get some kind of compromise on the wall, but I don't understand if it was so important. He had the House and the Senate for the last 2 years, and now we're pulling this. It's a hard one. I don't think it's working for him.
All right.
But, you know, we could declare war on Venezuela, I think, is looking very close.
He said we don't know what's happening, but Trump said what's happening. He said it's off to the races, meaning he
They'll
could
negotiate.
well call... No, he could well call a national emergency.
That'll go down well.
And then it's just like, thank you very much, I've got the money, spend it on the defence budget, away we go. And the Democrats know that ultimately they stand to lose on this thing. They stand to lose.
Rowan, while you're talking, tell us about the front cover of the Spectator
Of course,
magazine.
I would
Let's whack it up on
love
the
to.
telly. Let's move some product for you, mate.
Absolutely. It's the war. The vegans are winning the war on meat, and which is pretty depressing, but they are. And a great article there by Jenny McCartney, and a great piece by David Flint on why, Graham, we should be grateful to be colonised by the British, which I know you'll be reading, and I know Janine's going to grab a copy because there's a great piece by Ross Fitzgerald on Clive Palmer and spending big and can he buy his way in.
Did I read something or glance at something over summer that there are people that are pushing for, you know, sort of essentially compulsory veganism by 2030, 2040?
Absolutely, and this is a big part of the climate change hoax. They want us to go vegan. It's already part of the platform of the IPCC and others. Let's stop eating meat. Let's close down our agriculture, as Pauline knows only too well.
What are the chances, none Buckleys and F all, of the Watermark ever becoming a vegan restaurant?
Oh, I don't think there's a big chance. No, I think it'll be relatively small.
Yeah. Talking, of course, about borders, walls and all the rest of it here, the United Nations, which always loves giving us a tap, you know, the human rights part of the United Nations that's had, among others, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Cuba, China, they get to wave their fingers at us. Well, this is what they've had to say at the moment when it comes to refugees and the idea about boat turnbacks, something that, when you're an island nation, you are able to do when people get in a leaky boat and try to come here in hope of, among other things, well, a new home with welfare that comes with it. Here's what the UN refugee people have said, which is, if you turn someone back or push them away, you're risking pushing them into harm's way. Oh, it's like Dr. Seuss wrote that. And what is so terrible about these types of policies, rather than rescuing them, bringing them to safety and figuring out how best they can be helped? Now, the thing with refugee policy when they are talking about this, as we know, the way that refugee policy works is if you're in a country that's war-torn or you have to get out of it for whatever reason, you go to the nearest safe place. So if the next country or the next country or even the next country is terrible, the thing is an island nation at the bottom of the world that has no trouble around it in terms of all of the countries that are next port of call, it means you are not coming for that reason. You are only coming for a hope of a better lifestyle reason. And that's what shits me every single time, Pauline, when the UN tries to wave its finger. It's not like Europe, one giant continent with all of these made-up borders around it. Ours is an island nation with water around it, and if we didn't turn back boats, well, we know what happens. 1,200 people die.
Right, Paul, and I will not stand by and let the UNHCR tell us our policies, how we should deal with illegal people coming into this country, and that's what it is. And you're right, they've passed safe havens. They have chosen to come here for economic reasons because of the lifestyle they will have here, and I will not stand by and let that happen. I wish we would get out of that UNHCR, and here you have the United Arabs, Saudi Arabia, I should say, who are part of it, and they won't take one refugee into their country. Look at the people who are on it, the countries that are on it. They can't even control their own countries, and they have the audacity to tell us how we should be protecting our borders. And as I said earlier, Bill Shorten, the Labor Party, wants to give them an extra $500 million of taxpayers' monies to them. Well, there you are. So,
and don't forget...
I'm not interested in get it out of it.
Yeah, and don't forget what Zali Segal said at the start of the show. We should maintain our humanitarian... we should be humanitarian. We are humanitarian, which says it's better for you to be turned around and sent back to Indonesia than have a chance at losing your life like 1,200 other people did who get here. But the thing is, again, Richo, be it the Greens, be it the media that the Greens people love to turn to, if the UN waves its finger at us, we must follow.
I think the UN's been a bit of a joke for a long time now. I mean, when you look at the people who are lecturing you on freedom, then I get a bit blasé about it all. I just don't care what the UN says.
Are you agreeing with me, Richo?
These headlines.
Sadly and tragically, I believe I am.
There you go.
If you wait long enough, it happens.
You want to listen to me more, Richo?
Finally, before we're done here...
You need guidance, Richo. You really need guidance.
Well, hey, take your win, Pauline. It's a good win tonight, all right? Enjoy. Let's finish off here with the very serious situation of what's happening in the Murray-Darling, where yet again another example of a huge collection of fish that have died. Now, again, this is one of those touch points where if you spend 3 hours talking about it, you can't get across all elements of this issue. But in and of itself, again, the Greenies believe that it is anyone who uses water to take care of their properties, to make sure that they can have any form of produce that is ruining the rivers, whereas the Minister responsible for regional water, Niall Blair in New South Wales, well, he makes a fairly good point, which is it's difficult to flush through river systems when no rain is falling at all.
There's nothing that anyone has been able to point to. No scientists, no locals, no one has been able to point to anything else that could prevent something like this other than fresh water coming into the system. And we just don't have that. And unfortunately, with the weather conditions, the hot weather and then the sudden drop in temperature and the rain overnight, we've seen another fish kill today.
Now, Janine, I'm not pretending that what is happening isn't terrible. It's a terrible thing to see, but it does make fairly obvious logic here that for water management, you need more of it falling from the sky.
Yes, I agree with that, but the word you said was management. It wasn't just relying on God. There is management of this water system, and the question is, has there been mismanagement? Yes, you need water, but have they taken too much out? I don't know. And unlike maybe Pauline and some others who don't want to believe the scientists, I'm happy to let the scientists from all sides get together. What I would love in this is, for once, this is a bipartisan issue. For goodness sake, can't forget the Greens because they're out there. Why can't Labor and Liberal get together, agree on a report and at least say it's going to be somebody else's problem on it? There has to be. We tried to do it with the Murray-Darling. It might prove to be simply a drought issue. But we need both sides to agree to look at it properly.
Well, Pauline, why do you think this is happening?
All right. You haven't got enough water flowing through the system. What I've been pushing for is the Bradfield Scheme that comes from North Queensland, the Herbert Tully and the Burdekin rivers to actually direct it inland, flood inland Queensland, flow down to the Murray-Darling and run it through. What they've done, and I've been on a 3-day tour from Victoria through New South Wales to the mouth of the Murray-Darling. It has been mismanaged terribly. They've actually sold off the water. You've got international interests that are owning the water. Yes. You've got an organisation, the Murray-Darling management has gone from 10 people up to over 300 people managing that. They've had the wetlands that they closed down in South Australia. There's so much I can tell you about it, the wrong decisions that they've made. Open up the Bradfield Scheme was priced, the last price I had is $9 billion. Put that in, build the Bradfield Scheme. Water inland Queensland, bring it from the Ord, water inland Australia from the Ord scheme as well, and bring water inland and flush out of our river systems. That's it. That's what I'd be doing.
It's this thing though, Richo, where as important as this issue is, I can feel a certain eye glaze that kicks over because we've heard debates in and around Murray-Darling for a bloody long time here. People like Tony Burke, even Malcolm Turnbull at one point in time, have all had some form of involvement in all of this. Just on the specifics, though, of what the New South Wales minister's saying, how credible is it to say, I think correctly, but what do you think, if it doesn't rain, it's hard to move water around?
I agree. I don't think there's any, magic wand you can wave over this or silver bullet or whatever. I just don't think that exists. I think the only solution is rain, and we're just not getting any of that. So It's a terrible thing to watch, and I wish there was a fix, but I've not read of or heard of a proper fix, so
Well, at least Pauline's got an idea. We've got floods up in North Queensland. Instead of wasting $10 billion on an inland rail boondoggle, perhaps we could have an inland irrigation system.
Turning rivers back the other way is not as easy as it sounds.
But Bill Bradfield, I think
Would
that the
cost
Bradfield
money.
scheme.
But Pauline,
that might be viable.
Is putting forward using man's ingenuity to get more water into the river rather than having, which the Greens and Labor and the Liberals, unfortunately, are just trying to shuffle around the money, the water there. Can I just very quickly say that I think the problem is the number of avocado farms to feed all the smashed avocado cafes in the inner city Greens electorates.
Well, if it's Aussie produce, I'm more than happy. Pauline, thank you very much, along with Richo, Rowan and Janine. I'm looking forward to it again next week. All right, I've got to go there.
Can I say...
Yeah, go for it, Pauline. Be quick.
I've got something for you. I've got something for you, Paul. See that?
Yes.
And Richo, you can have one also if you'd like to put it up at the watermark.
Excellent. Send it to the office. There you go, the bar runner. I've got the guts to say what you're thinking.
Cheers.
God love you, darling. All right, quick break. Back with more. We're going to go to the pub next.